Hey everyone,
Hey.
welcome to this really great stream. I hope for everyone. We're gonna recap today with all of you ETH Denver and our experiences that we had at the conference. We're here with Aaron from Decent DAO. We're here with Angela, aka Wonderwomancode from my DAO. No, just kidding. From Unlock Protocol DAO. It's really great to have you with us, so we get some more voices. Also coming into the live room just now, Rachel Onchain. Hey, can you hear us? Rachel, you here? I think Rachel is still figuring out audio. Let her figure out audio. That's fine. We have time for that. So I wanted to move first into introductions so everyone knows everyone before you guys actually share your experiences. Felt like more intimate approach to all of this. So Aaron, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, what you're doing at Decent DAO, and what brought you to ETH Denver this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I am actually relatively new to Decent DAO. I just joined about 3 weeks ago. And my first introduction to the team was actually at ETH Denver. That's part of what brought me to the conference. Obviously, I was going to the conference because it's an amazing event every year. I love it. It's a great way to connect with people, sort of refresh your attitudes. But I'm the head of marketing at Decent. We're building still so far the only end-to-end operations platform for Web3 orgs. So we make it easy to decentralize, run a DAO, launch a token, manage your community, run streams, and organize your structures. And so, yeah, I've been sort of getting onboarded in the last 3 weeks and drinking from the fire hose and having a great time. But yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
That's great you guys made it because thanks to Hats Protocol, which Nick is from, we all were brought together at the Hats and Friends event, right? This is what kind of brought us together and also inspired doing this stream. So giving it off to Angela next, and after that, maybe Nick. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah. I am Angela Steffens, Wonderwomancode in all the places. And I, was on the Unlock core team for a while and then moved into working in the DAO, which has been a really fun experience to work with Stella to, help with decentralization and, really be at the foundation of us, seeing a DAO through. And it's been a really fun process. ETH Denver was amazing. I met so many really great people. I was also there with my co-founder of Mole Technology, introducing the new platform that we're building to people, and that was really great too. ETH Denver had such a great vibe this year. Like, it was wonderful.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Okay, Nick, go next. Roll.
Hey everyone, my name's Nick Naraghi. I'm one of the co-founders of Hats Protocol. Hats is the first protocol for coordinating work on chain, and we help to articulate specific roles with responsibilities and authorities connected to various smart contracts or various Web2 permissions, controlled by token holders or foundations in a decentralized way. Super excited to be partnered with everyone here to create the future of the internet and the future of crypto. Really excited to sort of be building this movement together.
That's about right, isn't it? The movement. Let's try and keep it alive. Sounds good. Rachel, you joined. What's up?
We can't hear you.
No, we can't hear you. You don't have to go out though, I think. If you click to the little arrow next to your microphone button, I think this is how you get it.
All that microphone, but no sound.
Yeah, Moondog has sound, so let's go.
Awesome. Yeah, great to see everybody. My name is Parker. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Decent Labs. We've been building on Ethereum for the last 8 years. First as an agency where we worked on dozens of projects in the space during the ICO bubble, the crypto winter, DeFi summer, the second crypto winter, the great thaw. And now I'm hoping that this age of the DAOs and of the regenerates is like truly upon us, and really excited lately to see so many projects with meaningful social and or environmental impacts being made as a result of leveraging this technology and taking a more holistic view of organizations. Really excited about DAOs as a potential vehicle to take the best parts of democratic systems like governments and hyper effective action systems like corporations, and perhaps combine them into something new and exciting. And yeah, I also feel a lot of love for everybody on this call. They're all people that have inspired me or helped me in some way, and older new friends that I yeah, really enjoy talking to and spending time with. So I'm excited to be here today. And I guess if we're recapping on ETH Denver, I can't wait to get down on that too, because I have opinions on things. So good to see everybody.
Someone is eager here. Rachel, are you with us now?
Can you hear me?
Yay! We can hear you.
Awesome.
Introduce yourselves.
Hi,
The losers
everybody.
who
Rachel
don't know
Onchain
you.
here. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, introduce yourselves to the few people on the internet who don't know you.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Rachel Onchain. I do business development at Decent Labs. I work here with Parker and Aaron, and yeah, had a chance to connect with many folks on the Unlock team. Actually did a podcast with Julian and Chris for Onchain Media. Have connected with Will. Shout out to Will, who's listening or watching right now. Stella, Angela, every single person I've met on the Unlock team has just blown me away. It's been a breath of fresh air, and I'm so excited to be here today. Also, Nick, thank you for hosting the Hats Protocol event during ETH Denver, where we all got to connect. It was super fun. Everyone just hanging outside. Even after the venue closed, I heard everyone just continued to hang out because the vibes are so high. And yeah, that was kind of the gist of the experience for me. And yeah, excited to be here.
And maybe this is actually the first and best thing to start with, right? So Hats Protocol, I remember reaching actually out to David in December and saying, hey, should we do something for ETH Denver together? I don't know what, but maybe we should do something. Because it always feels like we talk about, connecting the internet, right? This is what we always talk about. But what about connecting the people and the projects that try to exactly do that? And so, someone in January was like, yeah, you know what? We thought about this. We're going to do this. You want to chip in? So that was great. Nick, can you tell us like how this actually went down behind the scenes?
Yeah, we love bringing people together, and Dave is actually that's one of his greatest strengths is he wrote this book called Impact Networks, and he's got 12 years of what he calls network weaving. So highly recommend the book. It's got basically his whole playbook of how to facilitate in-person events and like to build the connection points between a network, kind of what to expect in a decentralized network format. And he's taught me so much about what's necessary to make that a success. So that was the spirit of the way that we've organized our DAO and our community, and then that sort of this event as a microcosm of that practice of being together, creating a sense of belonging, creating a sense of interconnectedness. And then it's just about finding great people, great projects, people who have big hearts, big ambitions, and bringing them together. And then the magic happens almost automatically after that if you have the right people in the room. So I'm super glad that everyone here could co-create that magic together.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I know everyone here, I think, I don't know if you guys answer, but I think everyone felt the same. The event was really one of my personal highlights. Met the coolest people over there. I'm not as outspoken as a German citizen like Rachel is, but I really, really appreciate that I got to meet all of you and connect with you in real life. So anyone wants to share maybe some more details about their personal highlights? Maybe it's totally fine also to mention some other highlights from ETH Denver that are not directly connected to the Hats and Friends event, even though we all know that was the Starstruck event. Who wants to go first?
I love that event. It was so great. I mean, the energy being so great that when the venue shut down, everybody was still just chilling in the outside area, having conversations and continuing to talk really deeply about a bunch of different topics that night, which was really great. Made some connections with people I had, known online for quite some time, but never met in person, and got an opportunity to meet some new people. There were like so many other groups that are, interconnected with everyone here. That impact network is definitely working. There was Raid Guild, there was Green Pill, there was a whole bunch of other people there that are, doing some of the other really impactful things in the space. And it was just the right vibe to have all the conversations. And actually, so many of those conversations turned out to be even deeper things that happened after the event, which that's the magic for me when those things happen, right? Like when it snowballs, when it snowballs into the next thing and the next thing. So that was really fun. Because like I met the guys from Green Pill, and now we're working on an AI agent for Unlock together, and we're like working on all kinds of initiatives that actually came from meeting people there. And it's like that's the things I love to see happen.
Yeah, those are great examples. Anyone else wants to share their highlights before I get to the part why everyone is actually watching this live stream? The ugly parts.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit about the Hats event and as like a microcosm of like the space in general. So the Hats event was really interesting because, well, let's start outward, right? Like I think ETH Denver, our industry, and just the individual people I know are all maturing and sort of like growing up, and whether by choice or by force. And I think some are very like reluctant to that. I'm very excited about crypto kind of growing up because I think we're in this place where like, the counterculture movement that was Bitcoin many, many years ago is sort of, composting. And at that point, to me, it's like there's no reason not to progress. And riding this like roller coaster over the years of like every time our space grows to this point of like seeming like reaching escape velocity, there's the scammers and the pump and dumps and the greed and this stuff that just seeps in and sort of like ruins the party for everyone. And I for one am like sick of that and just don't want it anymore. And what was really cool is like how ETH Denver as a conference and as a social hub and as a very important part of Ethereum's culture and of the culture of what we call Web3 now has matured and changed, and in some ways good or bad, not sure, but it's different, and change is a lot for people to handle. And what was cool about the Hats event was like I had people there that I consider friends that were sort of all operating on these different levels of that transition. I have friends there who are like strongly resisting this maturation or like evolution of crypto into an industry, right, as it has become one. And I had friends there who are on the totally other end that are like facilitating that evolution. So it was really cool to be like jumping from conversation to conversation with people that are like really committed and fighting for the grassroots of crypto, and really committed and fighting to expand our industry and make it something that's like safer and more stable, but like maybe isn't as fun or charming as it once was. And so it's a bittersweet change, and I think like the Hats event was a very personal microcosm of that change for me. That was really special to be a part of.
Honestly, kind of piggybacking off of that from a slightly different angle, I saw a lot of, okay, so I live in Denver and I saw my city change for this event, right? And I took a lot of Ubers that week, and I met with a lot of friends, and I met, a lot of strangers as I was going out and walking the streets. And a lot of the recurring feedback I heard was that people were kind of impressed by that maturation of the industry. They didn't realize, I had one Uber driver tell me, he's like, man, I didn't realize crypto was more than just XRP, which killed me. Like, I cackled, and he was like, what did I say? And because a lot of the messaging out there is, right, buy this token, invest in this. Should I invest in crypto, for a lot of people who aren't, super involved in the industry? And he was like, I've given several rides to some really intelligent people who are telling me all of these things that they're working on, and it all sounds so interesting, right? And so it was really encouraging from that perspective, sort of to see the outsiders notice the maturation of the industry and say, hey, there's so much more depth here than I was aware of. And like, how do I start looking into this? How do I start getting involved? And so, Parker, what you were saying just kind of resonated with me and called that memory back. But yeah, I think it's a net positive as well.
Ethereum is for everyone.
Absolutely. And just to share some of my thoughts, I would say that the energy was electric at ETH Denver. But another thing that I noticed is that decentralization is starting to happen in the community. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but there were more side events than ever this year. And I think that people are really starting to find their niche, and that's okay, right? Like, we're all into like DAO tooling and governance and like, ownership. And I think that that's okay. Like, everyone's starting to like find their home, if you will, right? And the side events were just more than ever this year. So that was just one observation I had.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. I observed that as well. Like, even in advance to ETH Denver, looking at crypto nomads, at like all of these pages that just list all of the events, and I was like, oh wow, this is becoming huge. But at the same time, I think for like, if I would have to do a recommendation to other communities, I would say, like, let's always do something that Heads Protocol did this time, right? I think that was a very, very clever move because it brings aligned projects together. So it's more fun for us because we can also, cross-pollinate. But at the same time, it also offers a little bit of a better experience to visitors, because visitors who are interested in Unlock might feel interested in Hats, might feel interested in Decent, right? And Leme and Tally. So bringing these, bind them together makes it easier for the visitor, because for visitors, it can turn a little bit into a nightmare, having to put 20 different events per day on their calendar. That's kind of a nightmare to do to them. So I thought it was a super smart move. And I know Unlock DAO. So when I say I actually mean Unlock DAO would always want to do this again, right? Because it just makes sense, and it preserves a little bit the energies of the visitors, because I don't know how you felt after the conference, but it took me to a week. And I finished my report to the stakeholders, and then I crashed, like, so bad. I haven't been crashing in years like this, right? So yeah, that's sad.
Well, Stella, I had the same. Yeah, it took me a week to put together my gigantic Notion doc. It's running down everything that happened.
It's a work of art.
But there's lots of emojis. But hey, and also let's not forget Carrot Castle. So like, this is what's so cool to me, right? So like, ETH Denver this year was like the Super Bowl. That's what I always tell our teams. Like, this is the Super Bowl of Ethereum. And it was super commercial, and we got rid of hundreds and hundreds of hats and hoodies, and we should have gotten thousands. I had no idea what to expect. And then, all of a sudden, like, I wake up one morning and I drive like 25 minutes away from the conference to a house, and there's like 8 people in the room that Stella and I are speaking with. And like, this is the grassroots emergent fringe of crypto, where there are people who are like really sort of like building, or even just like philosophizing around like, what is this supposed to be? And like, and what is what is the improvement as like a society and as a social like network that we are still seeking out. And so, that's what was cool to me. It's like that fringe in open source and crypto, like, that will always be there if you like look for it and find it. And so I almost felt like Stella, like that day, right? Like with Carrot Castle being in this like super tiny little like grassroots group of people who are in it for the love. And then we were in Hats, which is sort of like bridging this gap. And then I like go to the conference, and it's like bright lights and action, and I'm on stage, and there's, all this stuff going on, and it's all there, you just have to look for it. So that made me really happy. I felt like I got a really complete experience that week. It honestly, it reminds me of like South by Southwest or Art Basel or something like that in like the grander scheme of things, where you have this major event, but that wasn't really the point.
Yeah, this event for me was really different because like usually I am, tied to a booth and, very much like have a very strict plan I follow. Um, when I was doing developer relations on the core team of Unlock, there's the hackers I've got to, mentor and everything else at these events. So this time I got to just float around and have really meaningful conversations with people. That was a really just amazing experience for me. And I too had that like ginormous list of follow up. In fact, there are still people on my calendar this coming week following up from ETH Denver because it was such a deep list. And I can't believe actually how much activity was spawned from just this one event. Like I always get a significant amount of activity spawned from these events. But it seemed like this year that was like 10x what I've seen at any other event, any other, type in years past. And I think some of it has to do with some hype stuff, but actually I think what a few others touched on earlier about maturity in the space is really the reason. Like we're finally getting to this point where we can actually take it a little bit more seriously. We're figuring out some of those really important questions about how do we work together in these really unique organizations, and how that can be a real thing and not just an experiment anymore, how we can actually produce value for the world through these, how we can replace broken systems with DAOs that are doing really meaningful things, whether it be fostering open source projects or doing community impact projects, or even replacing systems that through typical corporate governance are really not well served. And I think that is like a theme I kept hearing over and over again. Like regular corporate governance structures don't necessarily serve certain types of organizations well. And, we had been so limited in the way that we were thinking about organizations that we, it was like such a binary thing, like nonprofit or for profit. What are you? Like one or the other. Like that's the choices you have. And then maybe you have some sort of breakdown in share structure. But aside from that, that's like not a lot of, inventive structure, right? So DAO, it seems like the experimentation of DAOs in general have just like brought up all these new different types of ways to organize people that become so much more flexible for the organization itself and allow it to grow and mutate as it matures in a way that I've, haven't quite witnessed. And I've done startups before, taking them from tiny to big. So it's, it's really amazing to see, because also the level of coordination it takes to coordinate hundreds and sometimes thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around the globe is immense. But like we're actually doing it, and that's so cool. And there's Parker.
Oh God, yeah. One of my notes in Notion said to do my hair and stand up straight for some of these videos. By the end of the week, I was a grease ball. Like that's rough.
So tough. It's so hard to get through the week. It's like a marathon, and it's so.
Oh, there's the house event.
Yay!
We had so much fun.
Yeah. Rachel, you want to just like You want to just walk us through these events real quick and like do a quick recap?
Stella,
Yeah.
If you want to go from the top, I can give some narration here. So
Yeah.
here we have the
Let's do it.
amazing video with Parker here. So this was actually at our booth at ETH Denver. Parker loves this video, you guys. So yeah, this is our video we got recapping ETH Denver. You guys can check it out on the Decent DAO Twitter, and if you scroll down.
Right, let me quickly, I can actually share here in the thread. So let me share the link with the guys out there. Okay. Yeah.
And then, yeah, that was at one of our Airbnbs, all the team having lunch together. We actually had a team offsite where we met and talked about our goals as a team. And that was really awesome. And yeah, we also spent a very long time organizing all of our hoodies. I actually have a video, if you scroll down, I think it's on this thread, where it showed the boxes of hoodies we had to go through for this and the hats there.
That was Pizza Castle.
Yeah,
Pizza Castle was awesome.
It's where I met all of you guys.
Shout out to Humpty, to Snacks, to everyone that was a part of putting that event together. One of my favorite events, Snacks and I had a call a couple of years ago, and we were like, wouldn't it be awesome if we had an event at the Sports Castle where everyone's like super nostalgic from the old ETH Denver days? And yeah, we ended up putting the Pizza Castle event together. Really great turnout this year, really good vibes. We ate pizza, we talked about Decent. Yeah, a friend from Superfluid there. And
so
then,
the Pizza Castle is how I got as greasy as I was in that video.
Pizza's to blame. Yeah, we also we did some stuff on the educational side as well. We were a Cypher sponsor of ETH Denver this year. So that's our CTO, John Huang, giving a talk about Decent. And then, that's Nicholas. So he gave a talk during Camp Biddle about visual design. Seriously, I felt like I was in a college classroom during this. It was really good. And then, yeah, also announced our bounty.
Rachel, you were literally in a college classroom. That's why you felt that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just very educational, is what I'm trying to say.
Nicholas.
Today was day one of ETH Denver.
Oh, sorry, I did not know this comes with sound, but there is also a cool video people can watch.
And then this was the main event, right? The hats event. We just had so much love here.
I love how we're calling that this was the main event of ETH Denver, you guys.
It felt like it. It was a great night.
We had hats on hats, literally hats on our hats.
You guys are so cute.
Awesome.
Now I regret that I came so late. I feel like I missed all the good stuff.
Parker, you should cover the Onchain Legal Summit as well. That was awesome.
Yeah, so this was really cool because, and I mean, talking about like the maturation of our industry, right? Like, so this was something I have wanted to do for a very long time. Actually, I can shout out NFT Mommy, Steph, if anyone knows her, because she actually, I was talking to her about a year ago about how frustrated I was at how long it was taking cryptocurrency to be taken seriously, and my fears that like, as our work is kind of, reverberating in the world, that it's going to get, watered down and turn into something that we don't want it to be. And she was like, well, why don't you go to DC then? And I still haven't been to DC, but what you're looking at right here is a picture of a policy expert from the Blockchain Association, the largest lobbying group on behalf of our industry in the country. We're looking at an independent director of Cayman Foundations who works with, dozens and dozens of DAOs to keep their founders and contributors safe. We're looking at some of the most forward-thinking and visionary lawyers in the space that are like doing extremely creative work to make what we're doing, possible. And it was just awesome. Like we all got together on stage and, I learned some really cool stuff. Like one of the topics we covered was that, in the United States, like there are currently laws being worked on that will include decentralization as a key factor in what makes a token different from a security. And like that's been the goal all along. It's like, let us do this the way that we think is right. Let open source be disclosure, right? Let permissionlessness be information transparency and access. I mean, if you build a system in the image of Bitcoin or Ethereum, I would argue that it's certainly operating on a moral high ground to any corporation or the requirements of corporations to IPO. And that was really a lot of what we talked about. Is like we can actually set the bar higher, and as a result, I think we'll end up in a place where even in the United States, we'll be able to do what we want as long as we're like sticking to the ethos. And it was just a beautiful thing to see and a beautiful thing to be a part of. So I was really happy, and it was kind of a bucket list item for me to just like, me, a lowly autodidact developer talking to the bigwigs. It was pretty cool.
Also, the turnout was great, which shows me, I think, like Parker was saying earlier, the sentiment is shifting towards maturation in our space, right? People wanting to learn how they can start a project compliantly, legally, and with respect to the regulatory climate. So we definitely saw a lot of interest during that. And there's Parker loves this one. So yeah, this was actually our fireside chat at ETH Denver. We did as well. Parker, do you want to touch on that?
No, we talked on stage. It was cool.
And then
I want to dig in a little bit more on maturation. I think I would love to get into some of the insights from like this era of crypto. But I don't want to interrupt the stream. Do you guys feel good on the photos and stuff? It was awesome that you guys documented it so beautifully, and you guys were super successful with all the events and really bringing people together. I want to unpack maturation, right? Because everyone here has referred to it a bit, and Parker, you already alluded to some people resisting it. And obviously, like, regulatory clarity is so amazing to sort of be positioning toward the idea that we're not going to feel like criminals because we're writing code to help people coordinate. We're not really doing anything wrong, but there are other people who have taken advantage of the way that things have gone. Or the fact that we feel like we can actually innovate. Like, America is so focused on innovation and creating new things, and it always led the way on that. And now we actually feel like we can continue that thread. And sort of alongside that, over the last few years, we've seen various different regulatory and compliance strategies, various different actors at different places in the stack sort of being extractive in ways that model the sort of systems we're trying to replace. I think about Ethereum as a tool for disintermediation of corrupt systems, and the idea that we could create decentralized finance, DeFi, and create permissionless, meritocratic, and fair systems for everyone in the world to use is part of what excited me and brought me into this space in the first place. So as we mature, as we get regulatory clarity, we have to also be considerate of regulatory capture. And as we mature and attract traditional finance into Ethereum rails, like we've seen, BlackRock is now in the space deeply. Coinbase has a very mature, centralized entity, is deeply into the space. The ways that these organizations are bringing their culture and their ways of operating and their profit maximization strategies into Ethereum, frankly, as a ETH Denver lover and sort of friendly guy and festival goer, getting steamrolled by some of these other techniques. I think there's maturation at the individual level, and I also think there's something to be protected that was good about the permissionless vision that we had been co-creating. So would love to just hear like some pros and cons of maturation and what we can do to really stand strong in our values as we continue to build permissionless infrastructure for the next era of humanity.
Yeah, a lot of that really resonates with me. I've been like a libertarian socialist since college, like really identified with that sort of, place in the political spectrum. And and it's a really interesting place to be because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people in America don't understand is what I should say. Because I actually, in speaking to people all over the world, I think there's people in other places that understand much better where that's coming from, that you can couple different types of economic systems and make participation in economy is a choice and not a requirement. And that there is a place in the world for that sort of thing. And that economic structures don't need to be singular for a people, however they're grouped together, whether that's, you know, online or in a state or whatever that might be. And it for me, it's like bringing some of these ideas forward, weirdly, like almost maturing with my life, right? Like a lot of these came from, you know, a natural process of learning in college, through, you know, my early days before I changed my major to computer science, when I was, you know, um, going after sociology and interested in political science. And, you know, I think that part of that was like that transition from sociology to computer science sort of like helped me have like a foundational understanding of how these things could be done. Um, and and like blockchain technology and distributed networks um, gave us the physical substrate, so to speak, to make these things come to life. There are people, not just technology. And I think that's the, you know, the thing that a lot of people lose track of in some of this. They start talking about it from only the financial perspective and not the human perspective. Um, but, you know, along those same lines, like some of the, you know, positive, some things that I saw come from ETH Denver even was like, I, you know, I was joking the other day, I had to fly to Denver to meet somebody in Washington who, you know, could open a green pill chapter with me. You know, it was like, because I just so happened to bump into somebody from Everett, Washington while I was there. And having things like that happen where we can like continue pushing things forward and thinking about organizations in a different way. And now I have somebody to work with me to start lobbying at the state of Washington, since I live in the capital here. And that was like some of my goal, is to say, how do we move these things forward? Not just talking to the federal government, but start smaller, start in my city. It's a capital city. So, you know, start here at the capital city of the state, and then at the state level, and then go up from there, and sort of make it inevitable that it happens the right way. Like, because the grassroots of it just won't allow anything else. And I think that's really important. And as opposed to trying top down, like growing things bottom up.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how what Moondog said about, you know, how Carrot Castle was an inspiring event because it was so grassroots. Then Nick concluded and said, hey, you know, with maturity also comes essentially responsibility. And then you're confirming this. And I will just connect to the same thread. I think what inspired me to actually go much deeper than just being a user of DeFi or like just, you know, lightly participating in this ecosystem was an event that happened throughout my first ETH Denver that I attended back in 2021, I believe. And it was something that pushed me to study with the Token Engineering Academy. And if you guys have ever, you know, learned anything about this academy, what they go by is this like really nice flower symbol, right, of token economic system in the middle, but then it's surrounded by these leaves, these petals that build the different perspectives, right? And I feel the same that Wonderwomancode brought up just now. Sometimes it feels there is only an engineering perspective to things rather than an omni perspective. And then the true power of a token economic system actually gets lost because yes, we build trustless systems, we build permissionless systems, but at the same time, people, therefore a social layer, is going to interact with them, right? So user experience is important. It's important to review a system from different angles, just one. Anyone wants to pick up on that? Be my guest.
Yeah, I mean, just to jump from Nick's to Angela's, it's not like I have a lot. I really omni relate. So I also I was onboarded to crypto via the Silk Road marketplace many years ago, and through there I started to read in the Silk Road forums, borderline manifestos, espousing libertarian principles as like the solution to so many of the problems in my own community and in the collective community at the time. And that really resonated with me at the time because I felt that most social systems were very gatekept for me. I didn't go to university. I spent most of my life without health insurance, and I liked the idea of like a competitive meritocratic system as a means for me to like prove my worth to the world and like earn a place in it as a result. And how has that perspective changed as a result of the experiences I've had in this industry and as a leader? So last night I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who reminded me that my responsibility as a leader is to expand the space and the area of safety around me for others. And over the last 8 years, I mean, some of the moments I've had as a result of this industry, like when the markets crashed, I've had to lay people off while I've tried to build a company. I've had to, lay people off into environments where it was really hard to find a job. I've had to stop working with people who had families or people that were close friends to me and people that I cared about. And I've dealt with like an enormous amount of responsibility trying to protect the people around me that, chose to follow me in the battle, so to speak. And when I look back at those times, like, the most recently, like the 2022 disaster of Celsius and FTX and Three Arrows. I mean, in that time, it wasn't just the fact that I was unable to, keep everyone on board on the team and like protect them from the economic dynamic they were experiencing, but Celsius was, as an agency, they were like one of our, crown jewel portfolio brands. Like we would brag about how we had worked with one of the largest consumer brands in crypto. And the worst part was like this moment where we're all sitting down going, wow, I have lost sleep, sacrificed so much, and put so much of myself, all of myself, into this thing for years based on this dream that I was sold. And what was the point? Like, where are we? And that's how I felt a few years ago. I was like, where are we? And then, and I can blame, central operating structures for what happened with those three companies. But I mean, let's look at MEV and the fact that in crypto I can sit in the room and we're all here looking at the same tech and the same concepts. And on one side, we have people who think that progress at any cost, you have the accelerate crowd. Progress, as long as you win, who cares how you get there? And like, it's a competition and we're going to fight for it. And then in the same exact room, I have people who are like, they're thinking about mycelial structures as inspiration for how we can get things done together. And we're thinking about how to create like a universal, positive sum environment, and an environment where, beneficiaries and recipients of services are involved in their design and this amazing thing. And so, I've thought about this, and it's, Nick mentioned something about like regulatory capture, but also this feeling of being steamrolled by like the bigger guns, or perhaps like the lower morals of these other people who are willing to do anything in the name of progress. And I've come to the conclusion that like if we sit and wait for this future state that we're all hoping for to happen, then like we will get steamrolled. And that's not what I wanted. Like none of this is what I wanted when we got into crypto. I like loved the idea that we could circumvent law and regulation and any concept of what was allowed or not using technology. And you'll always be able to do that with privacy technology. But I also realized that the perspective I brought in at that time was like the perspective of a child. And now I really look at it as a call to action. Like the easy thing is complaining about this. Like the easy thing is sitting in a corner and tweeting and contemplating on what's right or wrong. The hard thing is to study policy and law. The hard thing is to sit across the table from someone that you're told you're supposed to hate and understand their way of thinking and potentially change their mind, or more likely just like collaborate and learn to coexist. The hard thing is to accept that like we aren't reinventing the world here, like we are innovating. And so we need to find a way to bridge that gap. And I view that if you're a person whose life has improved as a result of your involvement in cryptocurrency, like myself and I think so many others I know, then we have a responsibility to level up and to take our power, to take our agency, and to create that future that we want, because no one's going to do it for us. And those people that Nick's talking about, they're around and they're fearful, and that makes them reactive, and it makes them really, really crazy, and they do this crazy stuff. And like, we have to stop it, you know, we have to do our own thing. So you know, that's my take. And like, I think that it's a more responsible route to accept the fact that like we're not going to steamroll them. You know, they have bigger machines.
That's my biggest personal takeaway from ETH Denver, is that we have so much work to do, and it's really hard work. It's this problem of it being in the world, being in the market, and needing to create. We have amazing tools at our disposal. We have the ability to rely on the world's computer running our code and being able to create hard mechanisms that can reshape the economic incentives of the world. And we need to build the right ones and then communicate why they're valuable and spread them widely. And we can reshape economic systems to be better for everyone and up level the global economy by doing that. But we have not done it yet. We have not succeeded at this vision. And when you're talking about Celsius, talking about FTX, talking about the current situation of meme coin extraction and other forms of extraction are happening right now, we have not yet accomplished this. And that to me, I agree with Parker, is a sort of wake up call that calls me into the next level of my journey in this space, which is like, oh man, like no one is coming to save us. We have to figure this out. And I'm so glad to be amongst you all, because I see you as allies and collaborators in this journey. But I honestly left ETH Denver feeling that the burden is the large burden, that this is a heavy weight on our backs that we are trying to carry, and we have a lot of work to do to accomplish it.
You
Man,
said
I left ETH Denver knowing everyone feels what Nick just said. So.
Yeah.
Everyone feels you.
I left ETH Denver knowing that if we don't figure it out, you will. And if you don't figure it out, our other friend will. And if they don't figure it, like, there's so fucking many of us now on the right side of things, like we aren't going to fail. That's not going to happen. And we just have to watch each other's backs as we go through it.
Not alone in it, like, was a really good feeling from ETH Denver. Like, Alex and I came to ETH Denver because, you know, this idea that if nobody else was, you know, we need to do it, because if nobody else was, because Alex and I were like working on some other you know, crypto and AI systems together, and realizing how dystopic that could possibly be. And we were actually searching for some sort of framework to evaluate the systems for safety, for security, for alignment. And what we were finding is that there wasn't anything comprehensive. And Alex comes from a like completely different place than I do, because he's an HCI researcher and I'm an engineer. But like, you know, what we ended up doing was like a year's worth of research while I was like at home, you know, and back and forth to the hospital because my son was ill, and I had this opportunity to just like dive in deep on research. And you know, we came up with like the human alignment framework, which is like a framework for evaluation of these types of systems for security, safety, dark patterns. Like it goes pretty deep. So socio issues, psychological issues. So all these things that can, you know, these systems can have a significant impact on, and how do you like ensure that you're thinking about them ahead of time, so that you create the least amount of negative impact on humanity, and that you create them in a way that's also flexible enough realizing that not all humans are created in the exact mold of each other. So, you know, it's about, we quite literally named, you know, our company Mold Technology, because the idea was, you know, molding technology into something that fit humanity, and not having technology, you know, have the sorts of impact on humanity that has been negative that we've seen come from things like social media and the grifts in blockchain and so many of the other you know, negative impacts of technology that we've seen pop up. And as these systems get more complicated, we need, you know, larger and more comprehensive frameworks for evaluating them. And so, you know, that's sort of like where we started. But the whole goal was like, hey, how can we think about these things up front? How do we accelerate, but do it in a way that's towards humanity? So,
And
like, because
Angela, sorry, I just
yeah, go
got
ahead.
all excited. So I am completely convinced at this point that with those systems that like, and that's above my pay grade, but the systems of coordination and like actual like governance structures that are being designed, and like, you know, like different types of like voting and different types of, you know, democratic like decision making. So I'm convinced now that the only way that we experience real world adoption of these systems at like scale and in commercial environments is if we use them ourselves to build something of note. Like, I think for a long
That's
time,
right.
we've been expecting that because it's so obvious to us that like a Fortune 500 corporation, eventually someone will find this format and go, oh, that'll be cool. But like, this is for them. We're actually taking away power. We're taking away some degree of agency. A great example, I have two wonderful examples for this that mostly just have to do with the environment. One, Patagonia, many people don't know, is largely responsible for the conversion of cotton farming to organic cotton in the world. Patagonia was only able to do that when they became the largest customers of cotton from a bunch of notable cotton farms, and when they became one of the largest clothing retailers and manufacturers in the world. And so they used their weight as this commercial entity. And by the way, they got there through conventional farming practices and conventional manufacturing practices to then say, hey, we're not buying this anymore if you don't convert to an organic practice that doesn't just decimate the land that you're operating on. It doesn't result in this chemical runoff into the water systems around you. And only then were they able to force, right, using the power of capitalism, they were able to force a positive change in the world. Another example, I remember once seeing someone, a friend of mine, when I lived in Miami, who made fun of me. I'm an avid waterman. I love diving, boat surfing, whatever. Who made fun of me for how much I cared about, you know, coral reef health and water system health and blah, blah, blah. And he was drinking a Liquid Death, you know, the canned water company. And Liquid Death is so awesome because they marketed an alternative to plastic water bottles to a category of people who generally don't care at all about reducing plastic consumption. In some cases, because of its politicization, make fun of it. And so like now there's two great examples of brands who like basically have like snuck in an environmental impact into the world, but only because they were able to sell it. And only because they were able to succeed on the traditional rails first. So I would say like the day that we see a corporation adopt the DAO format is when we have one that we've created ourselves that is notable enough that they go, I'm scared. We have to do this. You know, they're like our biggest customer is a DAO, and they just told us today that if we're not on chain, that they're not working with us anymore. When that happens, the adoption will happen.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is also why it is one of the reasons that I got out of fashion is exactly that, right? I was part of the system, and I worked actually in haute couture. This was my dream. I always wanted to do this, right? This is why I went through so much struggle to actually get accepted at the university that I finally got in, was because I knew I had to be among the best to get to that point. Then I worked in haute couture, and guess what? No one pays you. If no one pays you, you cannot make a living, right? So eventually over time, you start to think more realistically, and you're like, okay, fine. Then I got offers from private clients. And I was like, okay, I accept some private work, right? And eventually it put me in contact with an agency from Munich, and then I worked for them. And that was obviously fast fashion work. And because I'm not so terrible with communication, I speak 3 languages now. I was the one who got sent to the manufacturers. And just FYI, these factories are super well maintained. They're super clean. They're super highly efficient. That's not the problem. But you know what stunned me was this pile of neon pink jeans, probably like 20,000. At least that is how I felt. And in my mind, it just went in. I was like, who the hell is going to wear that next year? When no one gives a crap anymore, excuse my language, about neon pink jeans. And it just hit me, I've become part of a system that I never wanted to be part of an organizational structure that I did not appreciate for anything. And this is when I guess I encouraged my first midlife crisis. I was like, hell, what am I doing here, right? Like this just doesn't feel right from any point. And this is what eventually, slowly, I think, paved the way into crypto. Of course, there was like a financial component. And the more I learned, then I founded my own community. I was like, this can drive change. If we start doing it, if we start connecting with people who do similar things, have similar beliefs, this is how we can change, right? Kind of like a silent revolution that's like happening on the underground. It is getting ready while the world burns. At least that's the visual that I like to think about to keep myself calm in everyday life. I think this is how we accomplish it. Another takeaway I had from after ETH Denver was we need to connect more with, I think Rachel brought this up before, with, governments on location where we are, right? So,
oh, yeah.
Right? Recently, Unlock actually presented, certifications in the Peruvian Congress. This is a very, it's a tiny success, right? But maybe it's a stepping stone. Because there are still enough people also in the Peruvian government who don't believe corruption is great, right? So there are those people. So finding those people, aligning with them, and educating them slowly about what blockchain tech can actually do for them and their constituents, I think it also has a lot of power. So it's more about like reaching out to them, I feel, than them reaching out to us, because they're super scared, right? They don't know, I want to say, how good of a people we have here. They don't really know. But showing them and reaching out, I also believe it can do good. Yeah.
And I just want to comment there a couple of things, because you got me excited now. I want to give a shout out. I see some comments from people coming in. I want to shout out to the Creators LLC. This is a quote from him that has really resonated with me. We were talking on a space the other day. He said, "We are the people we affect, and we are the causes we spend our time on." And that just resonated with me, because I think about the things that I show up every day and do, and like what I'm spending my time on. And I feel like now is the time to really align with the groups who are making an impact, who align with your values. And Stella, I want to also bring it back to what you were saying about activating in your local community and government. I mean, some of you know the reason that I'm in Berkeley, I actually started working with the vice mayor and city council, and actually created this study showing different cities around the world using blockchain, and gave my recommendation to the city as a legislative aid on how the local government can apply this at the municipal level. It's honestly, if I can do it, it's like anyone can do it. If you raise your hand in your local community and you want to get involved, it is possible. And if you're in our industry, like, I feel like the people in those rooms need to hear from us. To take us more seriously, we need to be involved and actively participate in our government and be a part of it, I feel like, And another thing too, I'd say, is organizing. I see a bunch of comments. Just organizing in your local community. It doesn't have to be at the government level. If you want to do a meetup, like I just did an event with Stand With Crypto in San Francisco. It's like anyone can just step up and do something and activate. So yeah. Anyway, Stella got me excited.
Quick prompt. I know that we're running out of time here, and I would really, Stella just inspired me, because I have seen 20,000 neon pink jeans in crypto, and it's broken my heart.
Yeah.
For real.
And not to get dark here, but perhaps as some inspiration, as some fuel, could I prompt each of you to tell us, like, when have you had that moment here? Like, when have you seen the 20,000 neon pink jeans in our space, because it's happened to me, and it took me a year or two to recover, to be honest.
Should I be the courageous one and go first?
Fortune favors the bold. Everyone's going to drop off right after yours.
So something that I think none of you really know, maybe Wonderwomancode knows, but I was invited to write my PhD about 10 years something ago, and I ditched it, right? Because I felt like I didn't have something really good to say, like valuable enough to, write like a masterpiece about, right? And so I ditched it. And then recently I picked it up again because I felt like, actually, I have a lot to say now through all the experiences, through all the work that I've done so far in this space. And I feel there's value in it that could, have this branch effect to the outside world, right? Because I would not be writing it for the Ethereum Foundation, obviously, right? So, I think my moment was last year when I started to see very, very visible signs around the world of something that is called democratic erosion. And I think democracy, even though not perfect right now, it is the best foundation we have. There is no other foundation that gives the many as much attention as democracy does. And I really want to figure out in what I aim to write, how can we do it, right? How can we bring people on board to find a way to rule ourselves how it was always supposed to be, right? Democracy was always meant by the people for the people. Now it's by a few people for everyone else. That is just not good enough. We have now technologies that make that possible, so we better figure out how to do it. And the other component of that is that we also need to take people with us, right? So what we've always been forgetting when inducing change is that not everyone is as fast as us. Hell no, right? Some people are slow. Some people need time to adjust. I think Nick said it before. Change is not always easy, or actually Wonderwomancode said it, right? Change needs time. So Web3 is also about, and this is why I'm personally not a huge fan of magic wallets, by the way. It's also about learning, understanding that you have to become more self-reliant and self-responsible to be a responsible member of society, be it on-chain or off-chain, doesn't matter, right? And so, anyway, this was last year, and like seeing really crass signs of democratic erosion, that was my wake-up call. And I was like, okay, gotta figure this out somehow. And with the help of obviously all of you, sorry, you befriended me. Now you're gonna suffer with me.
Now we're in trouble. Now we're in trouble.
Thank you.
I know we're out of
Hey,
time.
real quick, I know that Nick has to jump too. If he wanted to say his piece before we jump.
For me, I think it's been death by 1,000 cuts over the last few months. Building through the bear with the hope that there would be a really good bull, and then watching the way that the beginning of the bull here played out with max extraction. I mean, the little kid flipping off the camera, 20 bandos thing was like stabbed to the heart. And then Trump token was the big one. That was really hard. And the Argentinian guy. And then
Libra,
yeah. And then some of the stuff that's been happening with ENA has been really tough. Sort of like, okay, ETH is the ultimate settlement layer. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be the thing. And then watching Securitize just go off and be like, nah, like we make our own. What are you talking about? It's like, oh God, like it's rough. It's sort of rough out here. But I didn't have a single come to Jesus moment with the pink pants, but I can imagine. There's so many things that happen. And that's all. Looking back to Celsius and FTX, obviously that's a whole nother one. But yeah, not to end on a bad note. I'm still optimistic about the possibility space that we have here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And I think it's incumbent upon us as visionaries and as people with strong values to continue to build the mechanisms that we think the world needs, and to to publicize those and open source them and distribute them and get them out there.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone.
Mic drop. This is such a special group of people here. You guys, for those of you watching, like, yeah, this is awesome.
I can't think of anyone who gets me going more than Nick.
Yeah.
Like, Nick met me at the bottom trough of my depression post FTX Celsius, when I was just like building out of obligation to our community and to our investors and to our team, and my heart was just not in this anymore. And to see somebody as intelligent and visionary as he working on the same problems, it gave me hope when I had very little. So thank you, Nick.
My pleasure.
Yeah, on the positive side of what Nick said, like I've been trying to remind myself of what comes from all of those disasters. So like, you know, Mt. Gox, like, sort of got the ball rolling in a lot of people's minds on decentralized exchanges. And, you know, like every time we have a disaster, it feels like as a community, we all sort of like, okay, well, how do we solve this problem so it doesn't happen again? And then we see more infrastructure being built and experimentation around solving those problems when they come up, and as opposed to just accepting that they have to be. So that is what I keep reminding myself of when we have these moments where you just go, oh man, oh man. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, okay, oh man, but like, I know that there's like plenty of other people, you know, like here on this stage and out, you know, in the world, like working on solving all of this. And that like makes me super hopeful every day.
Sometimes
Go for it. Sorry.
No, it's actually a question to everyone. Sometimes I feel we don't have a good system yet to understand who is building what, right? So unless you're a part of this space for quite some time, so you know some of the bigger names or the names that have been around for longer. And thank you, Nick, for joining. Thank you. Totally fine. You got to drop. We will miss you though.
Yeah.
Bye, Nick.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Nick. Thanks.
I just wonder how can we make it so that, so for example, with Unlock, right, it's open source and technically you can embed it in whatever type of membership system you want to build into your platform. I just wonder how can we bring more people's attention to that, or how can we find a system almost similar to Wikipedia, right, where people can just find those tools. And yeah, there are some websites out there, but they're usually paid and they're not decentralized either. So this is something that, you know, just, you know, with what you've been saying, I was like, how can we do that? So people are more aware. But yeah.
Yeah, discovery is a large part of what we're really trying to accomplish with HAP, and doing that in a more gentle way through user research that allows us to get insights to how to you know, make sure that we're giving people what they want in terms of an experience online, but also giving them the subtle hints without being massive advertisements that are in their face and disrupting their lives, that there are other options available to them, and that there are benefits to those options specifically, and getting to know them well enough to know what those benefits are for them instead of screaming at them. Because I think that so much of that bombardment makes people numb to hearing messages. And when instead you can really actually get to know a person better through, you know, deep analysis of their patterns, especially with an AI that's been trained to do nothing but be aligned with a human, like, then you have an opportunity to bring forward those things that will actually enhance their lives instead of just trying to show
yes
them.
Oh my God. It's so true, Angela. I've been reflecting on that a lot lately. Like, we really need to start meeting people where they're at, not just people, organizations, projects. Like, how are we actually solving tangible problems for them? Like, we just can't assume that everybody is going to want this thing. In fact, there's like usually a lot more steps and friction involved with what we do. So like, I think we really need to start simplifying and meeting people where they're at. Okay, sorry, I just saw a comment come through. I do want to say, like, for our agenda today, we do have a portion where we want to open up for Q&A. So if there's anyone watching or listening right now that has a question, we can see all the comments coming through. So if you want to share or ask anything, if anything has piqued your interest, feel free to drop a comment or a question. And then Aaron, I know you wanted to share something as well.
I just wanted to further the points that everybody was making and really latch on to what you were saying, Angela, that like, I think it all kind of starts and ends with our communication. And I'm biased as a marketer, as, you know, someone who works at a DAO. Like, I am, and not to get, I know a third of us have already dropped off, and so they won't even hear this, but I'll make them go back and watch it. But I am in awe of and inspired by and encouraged by the ethical fiber and the you know, human-centric stances that you all hold, and the work that you do. And it's been really refreshing as someone who, you know, had a hard time with this industry with MEV and all of the just problematic things that are going on. But I think like these stories need to be told, right? DAOs were created as a way to protect personal autonomy and agency in a collaborative setting. And so it bridges the gap between structures and organizations and the individual centric, the human at the core of it. And so if we're telling those stories well, I think we can start to inspire and encourage people that there are better options out there, and they will be willing, I think, to take on the task of education. Obviously, it's important to have more user-friendly things, to have better onboarding, to have all of this infrastructure to support. But I think it all comes back to communication. You know, one of the things that always bugged me about working in tech and startups is that in all of the marketing and all of the communication, oh my gosh, that is a cute dog. You know,
sorry, he was eating a plant behind me. I had to intervene.
Oh no, stay healthy, little boy. But yeah, like one of the things that bothered me about working in tech startups was a lot of the communication, it comes back to users, right? It's like, we have X users, or we do this for our users, or we enable users to do X. And that's just, these are people, right? Can we switch our language, right? Can we start talking about people? Can we start talking about humans who have real problems, who have real concerns, who are telling their own stories about their lives? And can we connect that to our mission, not as a way to extract value, but as a way to solve real problems, like Rachel was saying? You know, I think we need to be telling the stories of DAOs and telling the stories of ourselves and our concerns, and make ourselves human. And then make our users human, right? And in our own organizations, I think the way that we communicate internally, the way that we communicate externally, it all has to come back to that reminder that this is a grassroots movement, and the only way we make it to the top is if we bring everyone up with us.
I think we forget that the users, the humans, the humans, you know, are just like us. Like, they don't have necessarily this time in their day, though, to like dive in and consider all of these things. It's a lot of overwhelm for most people. And I'm reminded on a constant basis that, like, you actually don't need to have an understanding top to bottom of all of the technology that you use in order to make the right choices. What you do need is transparency in a way that provides you with the information that you can trust, so that you know that there's a cohort of another set of experts who have said, yes, we verified this information, that it's done in a way that's so transparent that it cannot be, you know, really, you know, gamed. And the interesting thing is, like, gaming the systems is exactly how we harden these systems against, you know, the ways that, you know, humans, interestingly enough, figure out how to game them. So, like, understanding those mechanisms through the experiments that we've done over the years, because I've been part of, you know, some failed DAOs that had some really great ideas. I think multiplayer DAO is like a really good one as an example, because everybody in that DAO was actually, ethos wise, very aligned, and experimental and happy and trustworthy. We had like a trust chain of an NFT that we passed around so many times because it was mutating one. Like quite literally, it was just like a spreadsheet, and we just had to, hope that the people would like keep passing it around. And they did, and it came back to me like, like in the end. And then, we said, well, let's create a DAO around, interactive NFTs, ones that actually, had some sort of interaction that you could do. And how do we, do that? Well, we didn't know. So we just like created a multi-sig wallet and like stuck some of the interactive NFTs that we had in it and created treasury. But ultimately it wasn't really well organized, and we didn't have the tools. They weren't very mature at the time, and we were all busy with other things, and we didn't really know how to foster it. So that was like a failed experiment, but there was also so many learnings that came out of that. Alexi, who had started Intropes, ended up building an EIP out of that. That was like EIP 50/50 for interactive NFTs. It gave me a bunch of ideas of ways that I could use Unlock NFTs to make them become interactive. Danny and Unlock DAO ended up building this fun little game on EIP 50/50 using Unlock tokens. Like it sort of just like snowballed into a bunch of other things, even though it was like ultimately a failed experiment. So like if we keep just working on these things, some of them are ultimately going to fail, and that's okay. Like it's what comes out of them after that, like the learnings that happen, and examining what those are and just being really honest about them. Like we're honest about the bad things that happen in the space, that we, learn what the next step needs to be.
Yeah, too true.
Keep going.
Makes sense. So there was a request from one of the viewers, which was like, "Hey, when are we going to go back to the cringe stuff?" So I think we kind of owe this to the audience, because I promised in the beginning. Now I'm sorry, you three are stuck here to take that burden on.
No, I'm just kidding.
The cringe.
And everyone's just dropping out in like seconds from now.
All right, time to go.
Yeah, tell me like your most like cringe thing that happened ETH Denver, and it doesn't have to do anything with the event itself. Maybe an experience that you had where you're like, what the hell? I thought I was in a good space here. So who wants to go first? Most cringe. I promise.
Aaron, you got one?
Something I know, it's not that cringe, but it's something that gets on my nerves like so much. And I might be taking this prompt the wrong way, but something you see in Silicon Valley a lot in like the Bay Area is all these billboards by institutions and they don't make any sense to anyone who doesn't know exactly what the language is. And so it's like, the best B2B SaaS cloud computing infrastructure. And you're like, I'm driving by this.
Jargon.
What does that mean? And there's a billboard here, downtown Denver, still up a month after ETH Denver, or three or so weeks, 4 weeks, still there, right in the center of town. That is, I'm not gonna name names, but there's an EVM chain that bought a billboard for this prime real estate, and it just says the most efficient EVM development environment for Web3 coders. And I thought, or like something along those lines. And I thought, that's great for your target audience while they're here, but also this was your chance to speak to everyone in Denver about what you're about. And you're an EVM, you're a chain, so you have so much going on in your ecosystem. You can onboard, like this is an opportunity to speak to the world, and you used it to get people to like scratch their heads and kind of like wave it away. And so I don't want to name names because I know everybody's doing their best, and it's hard out there. Marketing's tough. But to me, I cringed when I saw it, because I was like, man, only like 4 people are going to understand what this means.
You couldn't unsee it after seeing it, and now you probably have to pass it multiple times, so it's even harder. I got you. I hear you about this. Happens all the time and stands out to me too. Rachel, what's your
Yeah, I have a moment and I'm trying to figure out the right words to explain it. It was pretty rough. I just messaged Parker about this. Okay, so yeah, I was listening to our CTO's talk in the Biddle Hub building, and someone came up to me and Parker was nearby. And said, "Oh, you're Rachel Onchain." They're like, "I'm working on this meme," and I'm not going to say the name of it, but basically ended up walking. Parker and I ended up walking with them. They gave us a gift box, and basically the meme was a parody of. Yeah, I gotta find the right words for this. It was just an interesting moment. Basically, some inappropriate parts of Elon Musk. And they gave us like this blingy gold chain and T-shirt of it. I can't even go into all the details here, but an interesting moment to say the least.
This sounds super cringe, even though you're not telling us the full thing right now.
Use your imagination. Yeah. There's a moment where Elon Musk is on Joe Rogan's podcast, so it's a parody of that mixed with parts.
Oh my god!
That's all.
Oh my god! Okay, super cringe. I gotta unhear this now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You have. That's the most cringe I could think.
I've probably got like two things that really bothered me. I think I went to one event with Captain Southall with Alex, and we walked in, and I won't name names, but the event energy was kind of a little dead, honestly, but there was still a lot of people there, and there was a Lamborghini that was just like for no reason. like it literally had no purpose to be there except for to be flashy. And then at one point during somebody talking, there's like an engine revving and the car driving away slowly, and it was sort of like very performative in a way that felt like excess performative, though, like just for the sake of being flashy and showing off something very expensive. And I'm like, what message is that sending? like that's what. And I was like, that's not the message I came here for. This was a side event, by the way. And then secondly, like there's a lot of waste. And that bothers me a lot. Maybe it was because I grew up, in the Pacific Northwest, and, not with a lot of wealth. So wealth from a global perspective, but not from a US perspective. And when I see waste, it really bothers me, but it also bothers me because I understand really deeply, living where I live. I'm like surrounded by a bunch of environmentalists and ecologists and stuff. So I have an opportunity to hear on a regular basis how those like minor things that we do every day to create extra waste in the world, like Stella was saying about the pink jeans, actually is enormously impactful on the environment. At the same time, I'm going to say that, but I'm also going to say, like, when you compare that to private jet flights, it's pretty much a drop in the bucket. So we should keep doing these events, be conscientious, but remember there's still people flying alone in a private jet somewhere. And that is like some of the worst waste that we have in terms of environmental impact. We need to start talking stop saying that's what we want for ourselves, and start talking about what that means for our children and for the next generation, and for even us at the end of our lives, because that is so it's so much closer than it than people realize. And every time the scientists are confirmed, it's not just that they're confirmed, but the timeline that they were originally espousing is much shorter than they thought. So we definitely need to pay attention to those things and not be scared to continue standing up against the people who tell us that otherwise those are the things that we should be fighting for. And you know what? I'll take mine if it comes my way, but I'm also going to use it with every inch of my life to like do something better with this world, because like I've got 5 kids. Like I care about this stuff. They need a world to inherit here.
It's not even like, I don't want to rant, but it's not even that it's in the future, because the global south is being impacted by climate change right now. People are being displaced, people are suffering, you know, not to get too on a horse about it, but it's now, you know, like people are India, Africa, like Polynesia, all over the place. People are being impacted, and
even California.
Even California.
Yeah. We have been absolutely ravaged.
France, Pakistan, like it's happening.
I think
it's happening all
we
over.
are already very impacted by it, to be honest. Even when I was in Delhi end of mid-December, right? Mid-December, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, you know, even when you're on one of the highest places in that city, you can just oversee the smog. Right, and you can feel it. Like walking through the streets of Delhi is exhausting because you're always short on breath, and it's not because it's on a high plateau, right? Let's be real about it. It's because
Stella, I felt that in Bangkok during DevCon. I felt like I felt like I could breathe better in my hotel room. When I was out in the street, I did feel like, you know, I actually watched this documentary, Stella. I feel like you would really like this. It's called Buy More. It's on Netflix, and it kind of goes into. I feel like you're like speaking from the movie here. So it kind of talks about how we like offer a lot of the manufacturing to other countries like that, and being in a country like Bangkok, I could like feel it in the air, like so it's definitely time to start taking this stuff more seriously. I agree. And Angela, really great point. This was the year of the regenerates. I really feel like that should be a topic, a discourse that we're having with ETH Denver openly. That's actually a really good point. And I would love to, I'd seriously love to talk to their team and see how we can constructively approach waste, because 20,000 people coming into Denver, that's something to think about. Like that's,
it creates impact. You're right. Okay, I'm gonna share my cringe moment, bringing yet another topic on the table, what we haven't yet touched, which is the horrifying underrepresentation of females at ETH Denver. It's crazy, right? Like, I mean, we are half the population, and the percentage, like, I would be surprised if we would reach 10% this year. Like, I would be honestly surprised. Right. And I mean, we had a really nice panel here. We actually showed the world how it's done. We had 3 women, 3 men, right? And hopefully next time we get more minorities in as well. That would be great. But I think that really, like, it stood out to me. I'm not going to lie. I was volunteering also on a Saturday at the hackathon. And it stood out to me. And before people out there even go to the argument of people are not interested in blockchain, or women are not interested in blockchain, that's not it. I promise you. And this brings me to my cringe moment, where I was participating in a private event at ETH Denver, and I was openly hated on as a woman in blockchain, and that this is not my place to be at, right? And honestly, right? You have, like, I traveled from South America. I'm German. Even if I would travel from Germany to ETH Denver, it is quite an expense, right? It is not something that, I don't know, I'm not a trust fund baby. I don't rip this out of my pocket and I'm like, here you go, right? So there is a true invest for that interest, and the interest of connecting with other people who think like me, right? And so you pull out that expense, and then even though you had so many great events, and we reflected a lot on those, right? Because we had also collectively great events. We also did a team dinner with Unlock Protocol DAO. It was a lovely event, same as Decent DAO did. And I would bet Hats did something similar. But what sticks with you in the aftermath of the event can often be the one thing that was not so great, right? And it keeps bugging you in the back of your mind. It keeps bugging you about, should I have said something different as a comment? Should I have maybe made more of an effort to educate that person, right? When you always come to the same resolution, there is no space to educate because there is no will to be educated. And that's something that's quite frustrating because, you know, you think we're all about positive change and impact, but then it turns out that's sadly still not all of us. It's hopefully the majority, but it's not all of us. And with, you know, this is actually, we should have probably closed on a high note, but the high note is still, I'm so excited that I got to meet Rachel Onchain in person. Angela, we've been, you know, colluding on the Unlock Discord
for a while.
over a year. Was the first time we met, right? Aaron, really fresh face to me. So thank you for being such a cool dude. Love Moondog, love Nick. So yeah, that said, anyone else who wants to say some final words, or we're gonna
you know,
cut it down?
Yeah, I got some.
Rachel and I met on a panel.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Oh my God,
Yeah.
Angela, we have photos from like the Hacker House in the Bay Area, and I want to say that never underestimate the power of having a moment with someone, shaking their hand, getting to know them, because that might be a singular moment, but I promise you, this space is small and it'll come back around full circle.
Yeah.
Like it always does. Even Aaron, like Aaron and I, we like we're almost on the same team there for a minute. Yeah, now full circle, get to build a relationship and work with Aaron. And yeah, so just very, very stoked, Angela, that we had that moment back in the day and we're reconnecting here.
I know, right? And it was an all-female panel too at ETH Denver the year before.
Oh yeah,
so,
actually we had two.
Yeah.
So like
and
at
then,
the panel, and then
and then a Hacker House later. And it's like having those interactions with other women in the space actually, and continuing to like be like, hey, every time makes it, you know, okay, well, at least I'm not alone in this process of, you know, learning to encourage women into the space and making the space safe for them, and reminding them that it, you know, if they do have those experiences, that like they're not alone in trying to change them, and that we need, you know, all of the good men in the space to, you know, help us out with that process, and to also like help protect the rest of the marginalized people in this space, the minorities in the space, the trans people in the space, you know, the people that come from different religious backgrounds in the space. You know, it is so diverse. That's the one thing I really like in general, because it's global. And it needs to be more diverse and actually reflect the entirety of the population from a you know, that perspective. But at the same time, like overall, there is a lot of diversity. I think we see some of the worst of it here in the States, unfortunately, when it comes to some of that imbalance. I've been working in tech for almost 25 years now. I will continue to fight for women coming into technical spaces for the rest of my life, if that's what it takes. And it might.
Look into SheFi. If you're a woman watching this and you don't know about SheFi, check them out, because that is the one event you can go to, and female are actually the majority there.
Yeah.
And if you're a man watching, go and support, because what are you doing?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh, so true. Thank you guys for joining. I think this is where we end this really great stream that should never end. I guess we should just keep going for days to come.
But we have our jobs now.
Yeah, and I'm the host, and I have to be at an onboarding event for Cinco de Mayo soon. So
wow,
I just can't stick around. But this has been great, and I would really hope that we keep doing things like this, because we have, as very evidently proven yet today again, we have some very aligning messages for the outside world, and doing it together is like doing it through a megaphone instead of just a mic, right? So yeah, let's keep rolling with this. Thank you guys for joining. You guys in here, you can stick around for a second. Don't just drop out. But all of you out there, have a nice day, have a nice weekend, and yeah, give some things a thought that everyone said here, right? Bye.
Yeah,
Bye,
happy Friday, everybody.